Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the TradeInformer Podcast. This time around, I am very lucky to have with me David Varga. David, I think, will be familiar to a lot of you. He's one of the, am I right in saying you're one of the founders of Purple Trading and also the founder of, is it Fintokei? I couldn't work out how to pronounce it, but I'm sure we'll get onto that. So David, thanks very much for joining me. Maybe for people who aren't familiar with you, what you do, can you just sort of give a brief intro of what you do and how you sort of came to be here today, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you very much for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is also David Varga. I'm a co-founder of Purple Trading as well as of Fintokei. We basically started doing or providing brokerage services and portfolio management services in 2016. But before that, we were in the industry as technology providers or IBs for 5 or 7 years, even earlier. And recently, we also engaged quite a lot in the prop trading industry, or let's call it a modern prop trading industry, both as Purple Trading and as a liquidity and execution and trading infrastructure provider, and also on a, let's say, B2C side, with the Fintokei brand as an actual prop firm, providing services mainly, or starting providing services mainly to Japanese market, where the whole prop trading concept wasn't existing actually at all. And recently we're expanding this globally.
Nice. Okay, that's a good, concise introduction. Okay, so maybe we'll deal with a few of those things because I think you've given a good overview. I mean, to get started, I thought that what was kind of interesting was you actually started Purple Trading in 2016, I think. And you obviously had this IB background. I wasn't really aware of that, but I think even in 2016, actually this industry was already very competitive. You already had loads of companies, kind of difficult to survive, as it were. So can you talk a bit about the company? I mean, how did you grow? Which sort of markets did you focus on? How have you sort of, for lack of a better way of describing it, how have you sort of managed to thrive in that time, given this is such a competitive market? And I think you actually are targeting mainly the EU, which is particularly competitive.
Yes. Which is pretty competitive and tough and restricted market nowadays. Or region, let's say. So what we started, let's say, from 2011, and the whole idea behind the companies we started back then, but also behind Purple Trading in the beginning, was that we wanted to find and look for successful traders and connect them with investors. So some sort of money management, fund management, PAM providing concept. In Purple Trading, we call it strategy providing concept. And in there, we combine it with an actual portfolio management license. And that was the Kickstarter of the Purple Trading growth in the beginning. And that was the main product and pretty much the only product we actually have. So we wasn't a traditional brokerage from the day one. We kind of transformed and added the traditional brokerage product, which means we started attracting self-traders, as we call them, soon after we launched, and basically have these two legs of the business, or two main products. One was the strategy provider solution, connecting successful traders or money managers with investors within the legal and technological umbrella. And the other one was a traditional brokerage. Open an account, download the platform, and trade at your discretion. And it was going very well from the beginning. Then the whole growth was slowed down a bit due to ESMA restrictions and regulations. And even though we always targeted more experienced and serious traders, and we thought, and we even analyzed the whole flow back then and thought that the ESMA regulations would not impact us that much. But it was not really the case, and many clients kind of fled to the offshore jurisdictions seeking for higher leverage just in case, even though they really didn't need it. And as the whole competition was getting tougher, the restrictions were getting tougher. We started to be looking into other areas, into other trends. Some we missed, or we didn't catch up on, but some we didn't, and we actually tried to get involved. And one of them was actually the prop trading.
Yeah. So we were discussing before we were recording, right, that you had some kind of prior relationship. I don't know if it still exists with well, we can just say the name with FTMO, and I guess they are also I think they're also a Czech company, right? Like you guys are both
Yes.
based in the Czech Republic. Um, I appreciate you might not be able to go into too much detail on what that entailed, but can you give some description of sort of how that relationship came about, how and what it actually involved?
Yes, absolutely. Let's say just briefly, we were one of the first brokers I think they were using uh, for liquidity and technical and trading infrastructure before they actually got their own. And it's actually pretty amazing and fascinating what the guys achieved and actually created. Uh, Basically, they're one of the founders of this, let's say, sub industry or industry. Uh, and back then it was just a side project for us. The Czech trading or financial markets area is quite small, obviously. Everyone somehow knows everyone. So yeah, we were in touch. We agreed on some kind of cooperation, but that was cancelled because they managed to grow up enough for getting their own solutions internally. But soon after, we were basically approached by many other competitors because the whole industry was booming. And they kind of just approached us and told us, hey, Purple Trading, we just want the same thing you did for FTMO. And the whole market and the industry was somehow evolving. So the amount of services or the range of services we could provide was also changing during time. But that's actually how it all started. And without that, we probably wouldn't even be involved in prop trading at all.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's very interesting. So I have a few sort of follow-up questions to that. And again, I appreciate you might not be able to answer all of them, but one of them is like, so the way I understood the setup that a lot of prop companies were using is it was almost like they had a front end from one technology provider that was like the client portal and also the sort of back end CRM for the prop, and then
Mm-hmm.
that kind of fitted onto a broker's platform, which was like, so for example, let's say I signed up with Prop X, I would go through their front end CRM, blah blah blah, but then I would get onto the actual brokerage platform, and that would have Purple Trading branding because it would be your whatever platform it happens to be. Um, so was that in any way beneficial for you? Because presumably, if you're getting a lot of clients in and then they're seeing, okay, okay, I'm going through this prop, but actually the company I'm using is called Purple Trading. Like, was that beneficial in any way? And can you also talk again, if it's possible, about like sort of did the relationship you had with other props entail anything beyond like here's just a platform that you can use? Was there any kind of, I don't know, pricing or liquidity or I don't know, any other
Yeah,
sort of
there's
technology?
I would say the main product is the liquidity and the execution simulation, because most of the proper modern prop firms operate on demo environment, uh, which is which is there for legal reasons, I would say, mainly, or regulatory reasons, and it makes a lot of sense. But also at the same time, the pure demo environment is very basic, and there is a lot of room for abuse, uh, such as arbitrage, different sorts of arbitrage, etc. Because the pure demo execution is basically instant. So the main service, I would say, was to provide some kind of a simulation of the execution, as well as some additional services like tech administration of the platforms and of some systems. So it was like mutually beneficial relationship. We were charging some fees for these services. the prop firms basically didn't have much of experience with running the platforms or administrating stuff. And secondarily, for us, it was always also some kind of a branding slash lead generator model. So we could utilize the flow or the cooperation also on the brokerage side of the business.
Nice. And as a sort of follow up to that, so you mentioned the demo is more open to abuse, and this is something that I've seemed to have heard or seen quite a lot among people in the prop space, which is that basically these companies seem more open to abuse than brokers. And I don't know if that is just the nature of the technology or the fact that a lot of the people in the prop space are a bit more inexperienced or some combination of the two. But is that a real phenomenon, first of all? So as in, are they being abused more than, if you look at, say, your prop side, do you see more kind of scammer, arb type people versus the broker side? And is there a reason that is happening?
Good question. I would say, based on my experience or what we've seen, the whole prop model is more vulnerable for like not really the arbitrage kind of type of abuse, but let's say reverse or hedge kind of trading abuse, because it's pretty easy to buy 20 accounts with 20 different prop firms. The risk is basically set or predetermined, and you can just go all in before a market news on 10 of the accounts and all in on the other side on the other 10 and kind of game the system this way. So I think this is the biggest problem, and in combination with the pricing and some conditions and how the whole competition pushed this quite to the extreme, I think this is the biggest room for abuse in the industry at the moment, and many different prop firms are trying to fight this in different ways. But yes, definitely the kind of arbitrage or technology kind of abuse related to the platform setup is also one of the threats for the potential threats for the prop firm. But it can be severely reduced when setting the whole simulation correctly. And there's like a thin line maybe between what is correct and fair and what is beyond that. But it's pretty much similar with brokers, who can also play a lot with the execution setups and markups and delays and so on.
No, for sure. Okay, so to go back to one of the other things you were mentioning, which is that when you started Purple, it was almost like a way of connecting people who have strategies with people that wanted to invest in those strategies. So that's the thing that I'm always interested in, just because I find, I suppose, conceptually, the idea that someone can trade profitably with these instruments interesting, and I'm always curious how they do it. But from a more technical point of view, I always wonder, one, if you're running that kind of strategy and someone is profitable and a good trader, does it then make your relationship with the sort of LP more difficult, right? Because presumably they might not be happy that you're sending a sort of sharp flow, if you want to call it that way. And the other thing is sort of who these people are. Like, I mean, is it just sort of random off the street people? Is it sort of more sophisticated people that are, there might be a team of them? And sorry, the final question as well related to this is like whether you have sort of scalability problems. So if I think of like if you think of, say, a managed futures fund trading futures market, a lot of the time there's a risk, if you're really successful, that you almost become the market, and then you can't, a strategy that worked well at the beginning when you were a small player doesn't actually work as you get really big, right? And it sort of prevents you from running it properly as a fund.
Yeah, all three very good questions, and we've been through all of them, I would say. So the answer is yes, it's definitely part of this concept. So I'll probably go from the latest one, the scalability problem. It did happen for a few times with some of the strategies that grew quite a lot. And we always had to treat it like on a case by case basis, individually with the LPs we have. To some, we provided like a specific type of liquidity feed. With some, for example, we give the strategy provider a recommendation to split his trades into smaller batches, or like into smaller trades, and to make those trades in batches instead of placing one 100 lot or 200 lot position. So it was always like an individual approach depending on the strategy of the trader. But definitely the problems with slippage, especially on the CFD market, especially with such big orders, is there. And we were always kind of proactive in finding solutions. And the same goes with the relationships with the LPs. I think once or twice it did happen that the LP considered the flow toxic. So again, we had to treat it case by case and look for another LP or switch the flow to another LP from the selection we have. And in terms of the profiles of the strategy providers, it kind of varies a lot. It could be, or it was like professional hedge fund managers who wanted to have a side, let's say, business.
Side hustle. Yeah.
Side hustle. Yes. But it could also be literally guys from the streets who developed their strategy and built their track record for 2-3 years and finally wanted to show it off publicly and attract some investors. And it's hard to say. I wouldn't say one was better than the other. Actually, to our surprise, those that we had like big hopes and saw big potential in usually didn't work out so great, and those like not so big mouths, let's say, those were usually the best traders.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, so let's change tack a bit and talk about. Is it? I've worried that I'm not pronouncing it correctly. Is it Fintokei? Is the correct way?
Could be. We call it Fintokei, basically, just
Okay.
as it's written. It actually means it's obviously a brand specifically designed for Japanese market.
Yeah.
In the beginning, and the word is actually made up, but Tokei means watches or a clock, so it's like financial clock. The way how we translate it or communicate is that you have only a certain time to make something with your money and with your finances, or to change your financial life. So better hurry up and do it with Fintokei. So that's the idea behind. But like I said, we started it originally for Japanese market because we identified that the whole concept of modern prop trading, which is very fascinating to me, and I believe also to many traders, practically didn't exist there. So we were the first to kind of bring it there. And it took us like half a year just to get first hand of customers to basically explain them that how it all works, that it's not a scam, that we have some experience and background behind us, and so on. But once the early adopters kind of got in, it started to grow pretty rapidly, and the whole concept is now becoming more and more popular. And it's pretty incredible to see it, how like we're basically bringing this whole concept to the whole nation of traders, because Japan is a huge trading market for trading, and there's a lot of people who did or who are trading, and we are still in the beginning, I would say.
Yeah, no, it's kind of funny you say that, because so when I first started doing this newsletter and stuff about 2 years ago, really shortly afterwards, one of the first people that subscribed, and he was like messaging me, and then we ended up just having a call just to kind of get to know each other. And he ran different sort of trading companies in Japan, and he was talking about how he was like, there's this new thing, and it's like really taking so many of my clients away and all this stuff. And so maybe that was you guys, I don't know. But so just for clarity and just for people listening, you started this in Japan 2 years ago, right? Or is it more recent than that?
The whole idea started 2 years ago. I think it took us like half a year to prepare everything. The official launch was January 23, so like 1.5 years ago. But we saw like let's say we had more than 100 clients in September last year. So it took us what 7 months to actually get 100 clients, and now we have like more than 10,000.
Oh wow. Um, that's interesting. Okay, so one question I had was actually that I think on the brokerage side there is a perception, which I'm not sure if it's true, right, that Japan is quite a difficult market to crack because it's just yeah, it's quite just culturally very different. People tend to like companies that are local, which I think that happens anyway, but apparently it's like particularly pronounced there. You have obviously just like a linguistic barrier. I think basically you have a lot of the same problems that you would when going into any new market. They just seem much more pronounced in Japan than they would be elsewhere. So, firstly, has that actually been the case? And secondly, if it has been the case, what have you had to do to sort of make the company, I don't know, a success?
Yeah, it's absolutely right, and the whole nature, mentality, habits, well, culture uh, is completely different. I don't know if you ever visited Japan, but it's just like another world or a different world in both good and maybe slightly in a more negative sense. But definitely fascinating as well. And I keep getting back every now and then. And so definitely the key to success is to have someone native to be helping you, whether as employees, whether as business partners, introducers, or consultants. But I would say it wouldn't be possible to do it without someone native and just to kind of Google Translate your website into Japanese and try your luck. Uh, and we were lucky enough to have quite a lot of connections in Japan. We even have several Japanese native people working for us internally. So that was a huge advantage for us when starting Fintokei. And it was even the team of Japanese who brought up the whole brand out of the options that we had due to the like available domains and so on. So yeah, it's absolutely essential to kind of be respectful to the different culture, to the habits, to the traditions there, and kind of do things maybe different than you are used to or that you would do here in Europe or in some other country. And even despite it sometimes doesn't make sense or it might not look like the most efficient way, but you definitely need to adapt.
Nice. Okay. Can you give any indication on what sort of things you had to do to make it work, if you can share? Because for like to maybe give some background on that, that question. What I would say is that in the UK, it seems like literally every day there is a prop setting up, and then they just set up, and then they go log into their Facebook ad account, and then they put 1,000 whatever, however much money, and then it's just like, okay, dump loads of adverts on Facebook and apparently Instagram. I don't have Instagram, but that's what I hear. So is there like, can you give any sense, if you can, of sort of how you launched the brand, how you sort of began taking clients? Um,
Like
like, do
the
you,
yeah,
yeah,
understood, of course. So it's a combination of two things I would say. One thing is that we needed to understand and realize um, that the whole concept doesn't exist there. So you cannot even say you're a prop firm because no one knows what it means, which is very different to Europe or other markets where the whole modern prop trading is getting more and more popular for let's say 5 years already. So we basically had to educate the market, explain them how the concept works, and build a lot on, let's say, of reputation and credibility. So that's one thing, and that goes irrespective of the cultural differences. But an example for the cultural differences could be the name of the products. Let's say we uh, in all the other prop firms and we on the English website, we just call, let's say we have a pro trader evaluation program, which is a two-stage or two-phase challenge. And you have different initial balances you can start with, and that's pretty much it. But in Japan, it's more common to have a specific name for every single option. So we came up with this, let's say, gems names, and basically every single option has some kind of a name like emerald, sapphire, topaz, and so on. So it's definitely more playful, kind of more anime style thing that we needed to reflect in the whole branding and the website look and so on. Definitely another thing is native Japanese support. That's like a must-have and must-do thing. And another big thing that is very popular in Japan are some sort of limited editions. So limited editions of the products, limited editions of the discount offers you do, maybe of some merchandise. That's for example how Starbucks got extremely big and popular as one of the very few foreign companies in Japan, because they kind of respected this, and they made like a lot of special limited offers and editions of coffee or of the merch for every single holidays or special event that they had in Japan, which there is a lot throughout the year, much more festivities or events than we are used to. So yeah, these are just some examples, I would say.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if you probably have the Line app because you're so big there now. But like if you look at Line, which is for anyone listening or watching, is a kind of it's like Japanese WhatsApp for lack of a better way of describing it. And there's a whole interesting story behind that. But if you look at they're a public company, I'm pretty sure, and you can look at their accounts, and they make like some insane amount of money off of like stickers, like in-app stickers. It's like tens of millions of dollars because the people like having these kind of like special
Yeah.
edition stickers within the app, which I remember reading about it, or like reading the company accounts for the first time, being like, it's crazy. Anyway, there's a few follow-up questions which are maybe broader than just being about Japan, which is like so one of the points you mentioned, right, is sort of building a reputation and trust and all that kind of stuff. And like what this is, because I think this is such a new industry, I'm always curious how you can do that, right? Because if I go, yeah, like I'll give you to use a different example. If I went to my parents, or I went to my dad and I said, I want to open a spread betting account. I don't know why I would go to him for that, but he would probably be like, go to IG Group, because in his mind that's like this brand that's been around forever and it's really good. Or if I said I want to open a stockbroking account, and go to Hargreaves Lansdowne, because it's the same sort of thing. But with that, I kind of understand it because okay, it's a company that's been around for, let's say, 50 years, and it's got this history and all that kind of stuff. Whereas in this industry, I mean, the oldest firm can't really be much old. I think it's not even 10 years old, right? Which is like nothing, really not very
Yeah.
much. So how do you go about doing that?
Well, it's not easy. If it was, maybe everybody would be in Japan already. But I would say, or let's say our path is mainly through trying to be as much transparent as possible, having the native and very fast customer support, and furthermore showing off faces, including mine, which may sound weird, but not many prop firms, as far as I know, are doing that. And basically just like I said, educating the market, talking honestly about what you do and why you do it. And maybe one more thing to add, which I'm not sure how much important actually is for the Japanese market, because they don't know us there, they didn't know purple trading there at all. But in the global expansion, let's say, this is an important factor, that we are part of the Purple group, and basically backed by Purple Trading, so people can first of all recognize that we are not like newcomers to the industry or to the financial markets, and second of all that we have a strong background, big infrastructure, and pretty much a whole ecosystem where even the customers can actually grow, because we're not only a prop firm, it's just the beginning in the end of the day, and we have many other options how we can cooperate with a successful or talented trader.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so you've mentioned, I think briefly at the beginning, and definitely when we were speaking before, that you now want to expand sort of away from Japan. So I think you said you're starting in the Czech Republic again, or I'm saying again, you're starting in the Czech Republic. But so is that the case? And what do you have sort of specific countries in mind, or is it just kind of like general? EU or general, just anywhere, but not except for Japan. Um, what's the thinking there?
As the next step after Japan was that we offered our services. If I'm talking on behalf of Fintokei, we started offering our services here in the Europe, especially in the markets where we already had some network. So it was mainly Czech Republic, where the whole Purple Holding is based at, and where I'm from, and many of my colleagues is from, but also Italy and Poland. And that was the second phase, let's say. And now we're basically moving even globally, without any particular focus at the moment. The whole prop industry is now, let's say, a bit is kind of shaken after all the turbulent times and many things that happened within the industry. So our focus now is on building the reputation, telling our story, and kind of preparing for some more targeted, more focused marketing campaigns or expansion after the things settle down a bit, I would say. Because now, as far as our experience or feedback is telling us, the people are very cautious. They're not really jumping into every new prop firm that shows up on your Facebook, for instance, which by the way was the case, or at least that's how I perceived it maybe 6-8 months ago. The whole prop trading community, which by the way is kind of a small niche from the whole general trading community, and that's why I believe there's like a big future for the whole industry and potential for growth. But within the prop community, I think people were used to try different prop firms, maybe kind of jump to anything that popped up, just to give it a try for $50 for or so. But that behavior changed a lot, so we had to adapt, and now we are in kind of a more waiting, reputation, brand building phase.
Yeah, no, that sounds like kind of what you would expect. Okay, so I have a few more general questions about the prop industry, and I think because it's sort of a nascent one, as we've said, there's still things that are being figured out. But one of the things that I find interesting from like if I think of it in comparison to a broker, right? Such a big part of a broker's team is its sales team, which is almost like you have retention and then onboarding and speaking with clients, and so sales is kind of a broad term, I guess, for doing quite a few different things. But the key difference being that with a broker, right? Firstly, I suppose you have more of a relationship with the client in terms of giving them ideas, talking about the markets, and so on. And also, there's more upside from your point of view in the sense that they can deposit a lot of money. Whereas if you're just taking challenges, it's not really the same thing. So like, is that the case? I mean, I guess you just don't really need salespeople in the same way, um, or am I wrong?
You are definitely right. I would say, however, it's more complex. Uh, but I definitely agree with the fact that on a broker side, you need to build the relationship much more with the customers, and the whole it starts even with the onboarding phase. That's like much more complicated than with a prop firm. Uh, and I would also say that the typical brokerage clients are more loyal to the brand, so it makes sense to build relationships with them. Um, on the opposite side, on prop firms, especially some time ago, people were, as I said, people were used to jump from one prop firm to another, depending on where was a bigger sale or something more flashy. That is changing, definitely. So I definitely agree also, or our focus is also on finding ways how to increase the customer loyalty, how to build better relationships with the customers, and how to engage with them more. Uh, but without actually using sales teams, because that's pretty inefficient and let's say old-fashioned. Even people nowadays are not so much used to accept calls or talking to someone on the phone. So I would say this definitely needs a more modern approach, but it is a big topic for us as well as for any other prop firms, I guess. How to retain the customers more or longer, how to make them more loyal. Mm, yeah, because the lifespan or the changing behavior is much more frequent there than with brokers.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say that because I just went for lunch actually with someone who is at a broker, and they were kind of almost complaining, bewailing the fact that it's becoming so much harder for their sales teams to get through to people, but then they're having more kind of success with messaging apps and things like that. So I guess it's just like the modern world. Um, okay, so the other question, I have a few more questions. One is on marketing, right? So I think of marketing in this industry as almost just like as in the broker industry, the same thing applies to props. It's almost just like a bidding war where so much of it is driven by paid ads, and then essentially the more competition is, the more the price of the ads rises, and then it becomes more difficult for you as a business. Same sort of logic applies to affiliates and IBs and all that kind of thing. It seems to me, right, that it's almost impossible that this cannot be. It can't be the case that the price is the same as it was, let's say, 2 years ago, because there's so many companies uh, coming to market, and a lot of them seem to be using the same channels to advertise. So, is that making business more difficult for you? Are you having to find new ways to reach people? Um, yeah.
Well, we came kind of a bit late as for non-Japanese markets, so we don't have the exact comparison how it was 8 months ago or 2 years ago. So I can only derive it from the talks I had with some other prop firm owners, etc. But yes, it's definitely getting tougher and tougher, and we must actually rely on the relationships that we've built during our times in the industry, and we are trying to utilizing them up. And I mean like relationships we have with affiliate or IB networks that we have with media partners. So that's actually all the things that kind of are playing to our benefit now on Fintokei. But on the whole performance marketing section, yes, this is getting pretty tough. And again, it's much more nowadays on the brand building and reputation, maybe showing faces and the background, than just having a nice flashy banner and bid on that. So that's exactly one of the other reasons why we are focusing more on the brand building and reputation stuff instead of like pushing too much on the performance marketing straight away, which is probably what we would have done those one year ago or 8 months ago.
So the other question I have is around basically managing risk, hedging, that kind of thing. So I think when I speak to people who are running a prop or working with them, the sense I get is there is no real way to manage flow, let's say, or there's no real concrete textbook way to do that. At the same time, it almost seems like in a lot of instances you wouldn't really have to, but as in, you could just basically you could manage the people coming in and hopefully just make enough from that you would not need to take the risk that someone is like a, what do you call it, martingale strategy or something like that. Anyway, the short question is, how do you manage risk?
Again, it's a complex topic and very much different to the risk management on the brokerage business. We definitely don't want to rely on hopefully, as you said. Uh, but it's not easy. So it's not like we would be copying every successful trader who gets to the so-called funded phase, because that doesn't work actually. And the whole flow and the whole approach of the traders in the prop industry is very, very aggressive. Again, thanks probably to how the whole competition in the industry kind of pushed the conditions too. So we basically look at the aggregated flow, hedge some part of it, and look at other potential, let's say, or other options how to monetize the data, which is kind of a holy grail that we haven't cracked up yet, and I guess nobody did that much. But just to give you an example, to kind of copy someone, we would need him or her to actually trade for at least 3, maybe 6 months with us, which is very few people actually, much less than I would have imagined. Because, like I said, people are basically taking this much more aggressively, and that's one of the challenges we are also kind of facing and working on, is that how to endorse the whole consistency and long-term aspect within our clients or among our clients, either by making some product changes or maybe by making the scaling plan more attractive, because that's the ultimate goal, to find those who can trade consistently in the long term. Is not an easy one. We know it for many years already. But yeah, it's not easy, and the whole. So to answer very very shortly, sorry for a long answer, is that the whole risk management is complex, and we look at it in an aggregated way, not like we would be kind of
Not like
trader
account by
picking.
account basis.
Yeah.
Okay, so one other thing I heard, and I don't know if this is true, is that basically if someone is successful and passes a challenge, they can end up being worse than they were when they were taking the initial challenge. As in, so they basically they do okay in passing the challenge, and because they have passed the challenge, they think they're really awesome, and then they just start
Yeah.
being careless, and then they just blow up their account.
Yes, that does happen as well. I think one of the interesting aspects and benefits, sorry, of the prop firms for the traders is the whole psychological aspect and how it can train or make you improve your psychology and emotions in trading. And definitely this kind of ego boost after you pass the challenges and get to the funded phase, we could see that even the actual rate of people who pass to the funded phase and who actually reach payout is lower than I would expect, and it's I think something like 40%. So yes, it's existing, but I believe that how people are trading more and more, and how they are more educated and familiar with the whole concept, they're getting better. So we could even see it in our data that our customers are getting better and better in terms of the pass rates, or in terms of how many actually gets to the payout in percentage rate. I mean, so I definitely believe that the whole model can be beneficial for the end trader, and the whole initial idea is very good. It can, however, spoil some traders to being more aggressive, and that's a negative aspect of the whole thing that we somehow need to figure out.
Yeah, no, I think it's kind of understandable though. Um, okay, so the final question is really around, I suppose, where you see the industry going, because there's now so many people who've said there's so many of these companies. From what I've seen, I think in some other outlets, maybe the Czech regulator was looking at it, and ESMA. I think the Belgian regulator put something out about it, which seemed like they didn't actually understand what it was, but that's fair enough. So yeah, I mean, do you think this would sort of replace in some ways the standard brokerage industry in say Europe, for example? Do you think that there will be regulation in the, let's say, near or far term?
Yeah. First of all, I must say a disclaimer because I already made some predictions, particularly about ESMA restrictions in 2018, and I was quite far off. So whatever I think, it's is usually something else. But I believe definitely that the whole industry will kind of consolidate or gets more professional, either because of the regulation comes or even without it. And I think that the wildest times were already happening or are already behind us, and maybe there are still some consequences, but and this year is pretty much transforming. But as of next year, I believe there will be more serious players in the industry. And in terms of the regulation, it's hard to say because definitely regulators are looking into the concept and the model. But as far as I understood, or as far as we discussed it with many lawyers or even former employees of regulators, there's no like easy way how to handle it from a regulatory perspective, and how to kind of, especially if it's all trading on demo accounts, uh, how to actually make it fall under the MiFID scope, and basically the whole law would have to change, either here or in US, or in the other like stronger regulations. So I'm actually curious how it's going to end up. I did. On the other hand, I believe that the whole industry will not just go away or fade out. It's too much rooted among the traders community, especially in the younger generation. So yeah, I think interesting times ahead of us. We're of course ready for whatever comes, but what exactly will happen, hard to say.
Cool. Well, I don't know if that's a good point on which to end, but it's an interesting point on which to end. So, David, thanks very much for joining me, and hopefully we can chat again soon.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. It was a great chat, and we'll be happy to do it sometime again.
Awesome. All right. Speak soon.